If you look at a map of Boston, you can see where the Boston Airport is, and then the North End, which is a very historical place. And I would like to take you with this painting to the area of the Charlestown Navy Yard. More specifically, when you look at the Navy Yard, which is, the whole park is marked like in a greenish color. At the entrance of the Navy Yard, when you're standing there and you're looking at the sort of northwest image, there's a building that has always caught my attention. It's really, I like it a lot. And during a summer sunset, I actually saw a beautiful cloud formation. It just sort of drives your eye to the tower in that building. And if you can see on the end, the Tobin Bridge, that's the structure that you see at the end. So I quickly took this photo and I wanted to make it into a painting. First step is, for me at least, and for many people who paint, is to draw a thumbnail sketch. This allowed me to position in the final canvas the composition, which is very much, I didn't have to change much from what I had seen. Those clouds were fantastic, and the fact that they are in the bottom, is the mid-bottom of the painting or of the composition, I was really struck by it because it's sort of a pointing arrow to the clock. And I thought that was really neat. Also the dark tree on the left. So first thing I did was to position in a way the buildings, etc. The perspective in this particular composition is tricky because you do have sort of a, it's like a flat image. You don't have the sense of perspective when you're looking from a straight line on an arrow, road or whatever. But the lamppost that you see there help you with the perspective, and also there's going to be some atmospheric perspective. To make this into a painting, I used acrylic paintings with golden heavy body acrylics. I used yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, a little bit of cadmium red that I needed for the pinkish tones in the sky. I was not planning to use it at the beginning, but I had to. Ultramarine blue and titanium white. It's a very limited color palette, as you can see from the photo. You don't need that many colors. And it's a cotton stretched canvas, 11 by 14. I basically used Filberts and Flats on different sizes. Number 2 was basically for the very tiny details that I needed, although I don't like details in the paintings. But for some areas I needed the number 2. And basically everything was done with a very large brush, because you do have almost half of the canvas is flat area on the sky. And it was easier to use a larger brush. So on a first blocking stage, I actually decided to block the large shapes, like the tree, the trees, both on the left, the bottom and the right, with green. So I used a local color instead of blocking in everything with the same tone and the same color. I decided to start blocking in with the colors that I was starting to see. Basically where the shapes were based on my sketch, and also make sure that I had the lightest light and the sharpest, the darkest dark. The contrast, especially when they're side by side, makes for a better final painting. And it was important for me to place the key elements. I reduced a complex image into a simpler image, and making sure that I had positioned everything in place. I realized that I had forgotten to leave the area of the farthest lamp, so I just very quickly wiped it out when the wash was still wet. I wiped it out from the canvas. So that's basically the block in. But I realized that my building, for some reason, had become smaller than it should be. So I corrected that on the next stage of the painting. What I did here was refine the shapes of the clouds. I wanted that to be the most dramatic place of it. And I also sculpted the trees with negative painting, so using the building color in the back of the trees and as appropriate, or the Tobin Bridge color to open up those trees, or the sky. So basically, I like sculpting the trees with this negative painting instead of doing it the other way around, that you paint the background and then on top of it you paint the trees. I feel that there's more of a painterly style and it's fun. So I resized the building more appropriately, and also I used the temperature of the colors. It's the alizarin crimson. There's a little bit of yellow ochre on the areas that are getting the sunlight from the sunset, and there's more of a ultramarine blue as it goes more to the shaded area. And I liked doing that to give the sense of the light and the shadows. Also with very small brush strokes, just putting a little bit of yellow ochre with a tiny bit of titanium white was like the little flickers of light. And I really liked the effect, and I didn't really touch the building that much more through the painting. I did work a little bit more on the faint highway structures. Again, I did not want to do any specific details on the structure of the Tobin Bridge, but just a little bit. That also highlights the effect of the light in this particular sunset image that was so appealing to me when I saw it. And I'm making it a bit more dramatic in terms of the colors that I'm using compared to the photo, but the photos actually do not convey very accurate colors. And this is more of what I really was seeing. It was more dramatic, and I really liked it. The lampposts are very roughly made, just basically brush strokes, and that's the way I really wanted to make it, not detailed. Again, not very many details. On the next stage, I was really struggling with the sky. I didn't like the way it was looking. It had a lot of turquoise that wasn't really there. And this was really hard in acrylics. If this had been an oil painting, it would have been probably easier to blend the different colors. But with the acrylics, they dry very quickly. So the transition from the blues to the oranges and pinks and yellows was very hard to do. And that's basically in this step, I really struggle a lot. So I was trying to adjust the tonality of the sky, making sure that I could see the bright lights, especially on that straight band at the bottom of the Tobin Bridge, and then what hits the building. I did like the way that the building was looking just with that brush stroke very quickly on certain areas of the building where the light's hitting, but I was having a lot of trouble with the image of the sky and with the clouds. So this was sort of frustrating, but also rewarding because you start working on it and you want to make sure that it's okay. If you can see, the lamps have very, very little work on them. I like the idea of not looking like a photo. Needless to say, I wouldn't be able to paint like a photo. I'm just an amateur painter. But the sense of painterly images, you know it's a brush stroke and you're not blending there. It's easier not to blend with acrylics. I put the reflection of the yellows from the sky and of course the blues that give you the idea it was a sunset, it was an evening scene. And this is the final way that it ended up. It's really hard sometimes to get a good photo of the painting. The painting looks a bit more, it looks a bit better, but you can see the brush strokes on the sky. I decided to do them vertical and make sure that I could transition from the blues to the yellows. There's a very faint orangey pink in some of the clouds and some of the reflections of the clouds. I realized they were too dark in my original blocking and in my previous step of the painting, But at the end, the painting, actually, I'm very happy with it. And it's basically using a lot of impasto at the very end. So don't give up. Paint, have fun, and I hope you enjoy this. Thank you very much.